Greetings! This is Vladimir Timoshenko with you, and we're jumping right into the main topic. Yesterday, the Russians launched a combined strike on Kyiv and Dnipro. Once again, there are casualties, injuries, and destruction. This is real terror against civilians. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces have full control over the land access to Crimea, which creates huge logistical problems for the enemy, who is temporarily holed up on the occupied peninsula and its approaches. The situation on the front is turning in favor of the Ukrainian defenders. Here are some exclusive details. While Putin keeps spouting utter nonsense and refuses to believe that the Russian army is losing on the front lines,
our troops are advancing in all directions. Well, you see it yourself every single day.
Every single day, Russian troops are just getting hit by strikes from the Ukrainian armed forces, and that's happening across all fronts, from the front lines to deep behind enemy lines, something even Kremlin propaganda can no longer keep quiet about.
We've reached a point where offensive capabilities outweigh defensive ones.
In the past few weeks, the Ukrainian armed forces have been focusing closely on the so-called land corridor to Crimea. We're talking about a stretch of highway that connects Rostov-on-Don with the temporarily occupied territories of Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions, and then leads into Crimea. It was along this route that the occupiers carried out, or more accurately, used to carry out, deliveries of equipment, ammunition, uniforms, fuel, and everything else they needed. Now, thanks to the quick work of Ukrainian drones, the local highways look something like this.
And another one just hit. And another one hit.
Lately, you can see scenes like this on most of the roads in the Primorye region. Many drivers are already refusing to travel along this so-called land corridor to Crimea.
Yesterday, 2 more vehicles were taken out by drones. The guy said that right in front of him, these 2 trucks were blown up.
And it's only gonna get worse, Russian propaganda notes with sadness in their voice.
Unfortunately, the new territories are getting hit, especially lately. The enemy is striking with FPV drones and doing everything possible to cut off logistics. The Vasilivka-Enerдар highway is also under threat. The highway along the Sea of Azov from Mariupol further to Kyanichik is constantly under attack. Now, cargo trucks and fuel tankers are becoming targets, and they're used not only for military purposes, but also for civilian needs. That's why another fuel crisis is looming.
Gasoline shortages in Sevastopol. These are the consequences of systematic enemy strikes on oil refineries and tanker trucks along the land corridor to Crimea.
But the catastrophic fuel situation on the occupied peninsula is just the tip of the iceberg. Ukrainian drones have taken operational fire control over the main artery of Putin's war in Ukraine. Rumor has it that the bunker dweller is having another meltdown, and his cardboard generals are being forced to find a way out of this stalemate. After all, besides the roads, the Ukrainian armed forces are also actively destroying the enemy's transshipment bases.
How do you fight this? Right now, you can't. In our view, only MOGs, mobile fire groups, and observation posts can provide such defense because the targets aren't high speed, can't maneuver actively, and fly at relatively low altitudes, up to 100 meters, since they're not visible on air defense radars and aren't affected by electronic warfare, either because they operate autonomously or are equipped with Starlink dishes.
Thus, the strike zone of the Ukrainian armed forces expands to 20, 30, or even 50 kilometers deep into enemy territory. At that distance, drones hit all convoys heading toward the Sea of Azov, and any preparations by the Kremlin for an offensive or troop redeployment end with massive UAV raids.
Because of the destruction of Russian Ural and Kamaz trucks 30 to 50 kilometers behind the front lines, the Russian command has banned the movement of convoys and now requires the use of mobile fire support groups to escort logistics convoys, as well as relocating some Russian depots to Russian territory.
In practice, this means only one thing. With each passing day, it's becoming harder and harder for the occupiers to supply their troops in Crimea and beyond. The Ukrainian tactic of cutting off the enemy's supply routes is bearing fruit much faster than anyone could have imagined.
The carrying capacity of supply convoys drops rapidly as the distance they need to cover increases. In a hypothetical convoy traveling 50 kilometers at an average speed of 50 kilometers per hour, each truck driver can make 3 trips a day during a 12-hour shift. 1 hour for loading, 1 hour to drive to the delivery point, 1 hour for unloading, and 1 hour to return to the logistics base. That's a total of 4 hours per trip. Throughput drops by 33% if the distance increases by another 50 kilometers. 1 hour for loading, 2 hours to drive to the delivery point, 1 hour for unloading, and 2 hours to return to the logistics base. That's 6 hours per trip. So you can only make 2 trips a day.
For the Kremlin, this can mean only one thing. Their time ruling the peninsula is coming to an end. The local collaborators understand this perfectly well. According to rumors, they're already evacuating their families from the peninsula and actively packing their bags to flee. This is how control over supply routes becomes one of the key factors in the development of combat operations on the front in 2026.
And now it's time to analyze the operational situation on the Lyman front. Fierce fighting continues. On the Lyman front, Ukrainian soldiers successfully repelled 7 enemy attempts to advance near Kopanki, Novonikolayevka, Dibrova, Stavki, Drobishevo, Lyman, and Ozernie. 4 more battles are still ongoing. And now, attention! They are burning artillery and ammunition depots, leveling enemy shelters to the ground, and destroying Russian personnel along with their military equipment. The soldiers of the 32nd Separate Artillery Brigade, part of the 30th Marine Corps of the Naval Forces, are striking the enemy on occupied territory from the Black Sea to Nikopol. The artillerymen work closely with aerial reconnaissance, which locates targets for them to strike. TSN correspondent Serhiy Sachuk saw with his own eyes how the famous Bogdana self-propelled artillery system fights alongside the Marines in the Kherson region. And now you'll see it too.
We're observing an explosion.
This video is being filmed by Reconnaissance Traven. It shows NATO-caliber shells fired from the Ukrainian Bogdana artillery system, wiping out Russian forces who had arrived for rotation in the occupied forests of the Kherson region.
2 trucks carrying enemy personnel drove into the forest. We saw them unloading and immediately adjusted the artillery fire. In other words, the artillery was already in firing position. So from the moment we reported that we had found the target to the start of the shelling, it was about 3 or 4 minutes.
The operator of the aerial drone system, with the callsign Director, used to head one of the local schools and taught physics there before the full-scale invasion. He enlisted, went through training, and now jokes that sometimes his flights are very successful.
There were times when, during a single flight, we made adjustments 5 times. That is, we could see the artillery strikes as they happened. We saw the results, that the enemy positions were actually suppressed, and that puts us in a good mood.
And it all starts out in an open field. The aerial reconnaissance team launches this drone using a special catapult. This is a Ukrainian Shark, a fixed-wing drone. The group commander explains the advantages of this so-called wing.
The flight range, the camera zoom, the image quality, it's all much better than the Mavics or FPVs. We can fly farther, we find more, and we operate on the far edge.
If we don't find anything during the day, we search at night, but this time using a thermal imager. They act like real trackers.
First and foremost, we pay attention to the roads. If there's a forest somewhere and fresh tracks, we'll study that forest from top to bottom however we need to. We'll keep searching. If there are fresh tracks, that means someone must be there. And that's how it works out in 90% of cases.
And when they find the enemy, they relay the coordinates to the artillerymen. They have to arrive and fire as quickly as possible so enemy drones don't spot them.
One gun goes out, quickly does its job, completes its combat mission, and destroys the target. Aerial reconnaissance adjusts the fire, and the whole thing takes about 15 to 20 minutes. A good stream, good shells, and we can hit anything we want.
To Odessa.
Here is the sound of the legendary Bogdana. Her first baptism of fire was back in the summer of 1922. The self-propelled artillery unit destroyed the enemy on Zmainy Island, beginning the process of its liberation. Now he is burning the enemy on the occupied left bank of the Kherson region. No FPV drone can replace its explosive shells, says the gun commander.
Range, interference, electronic warfare. You can take down a drone, but you can't jam a shell. If the gun is really good, the strike will be effective. Plus, a 155mm caliber is a real problem for the enemy.
After hitting all their targets, the artillerymen head back. The Ukrainian Shark is also preparing to land, so it can take off on a new mission tomorrow.
President. It's completely closed. Copy that. The bird's on the ground.